I'm in Fort Worth. We are protesting. As a matter of fact, I'm going to talk about protests and demonstrations as forms of asymmetrical opposition. I'm in Fort. As a matter of fact, we're in downtown Fort Worth. Too often when we do something, because of fear, intimidation, what we do is that we do it on our side of town. When we get upset, we ride on our side of town, but we're downtown in what we refer to as the killing fields of Fort Worth, Texas, the Terror Dome. We're downtown at their Prize Hotel at Omni Hotel every day. We also, not only are we at Omni Hotel, but we're also at Bass Hall. That's the crown jewel of Fort Worth, and also across from Sundance Square. We're there. I don't know if I'm sure everybody's heard about. Let me just do this by way of preface. You heard about Jacqueline Craig, the Jacqueline Craig situation where she called the police because her son was, he's 8 years old. He was being choked by his neighbor. Oh. And she called the police, and when the policeman came, his name was William Martin, he ended up hyperextending her 15-year-old daughter's arm, kicking her 19-year-old daughter, and throwing Jackie Craig to the ground, arresting the three of them. And then also in the killing fields of Fort Worth, we have another officer, Courtney Johnson, who shot in the back Gregory Adams. Gregory Adams, Gregory Adams, the brother survived the shotgun blast, but he was unarmed. And while he was on the ground bleeding, all of the police were pointing guns at him. There's something going on, Brother Rogers, in Fort Worth I have never seen, and that is that this time the clergy, the preachers have come together. That's a rarity. That's a rarity. That's a rarity. I'm talking about coming together not just to be talking and not just to be preaching and telling what we're. I'm talking about coming together, standing up and on protesting, demonstrating the whole 9 yards. That's a rarity. I pastor a church, but it seems as though the cosmic ultimate has a sense of humor because I didn't like preachers. I called them chicken eaters. I didn't like the bottom line is this, though, and not only that, but with the Nation of Islam, NOI, with Brother Lee Mohammed, all of us are together, the Pan-African nationalists and others are together. I've not seen it on this fashion in Fort Worth, but because we have a police chief, and this is the Cliff Notes version, because we have a police chief by the name of Joe Fitzgerald, who is in over his head. He is African American, but the brother is like Stephen of Django Unchained. He's like Uncle Ruckus of Boondocks. And he's that kind of guy, and we are asking for him to be fired, and for the city manager to be fired. And they're going to recall the mayor, and we're going to fire, ask that Valerie Washington, the assistant city manager, to be fired as well. So a lot is going on by way of struggle. And so what we've done is I appreciate again the opportunity to share with you. I saw some things on the NCOBRA online website, and I looked at reparations as a process of repairing. We all know that healing and restoring the people injured because of their group identity and in violation of their fundamental human rights by government, corporations, institutions, and families. And then there was a couple of questions. I'm reading this for a reason. There were a couple of questions. Who must make reparations? And NCOBRA seeks reparations at this time from two groups, governments and corporations. That's essential, governments and corporations. What strategies does NCOBRA utilize and endorse? NCOBRA, and this is the one that stood out to me, NCOBRA engages in direct action to obtain reparations. Its leadership organized a highway slowdown on Washington Memorial area, Beltway in the early 90s, and demonstrations in front of federal buildings. And from these demonstrations, it created Reparations Awareness Day. I wanted to read that because I wanted to contextualize what I'm about to say. Again, by way of introduction, I teach at Bright Divinity School at TCU for the last 11 years, as well as I taught assistant professor of religion at Jarvis Christian College in Hawkins, Texas. When you talk about demonstration, protests and demonstrations as asymmetrical opposition as tools, first of all, it's important to recognize, and I have copies. I've sent a copy, and if you want a copy of this, we'll make copies available. Okay. America is a country with an extremely limited historical memory vis-a-vis issues of race. This accounts to an extent for the psychosocial, cultural, and historical vandalism of African American memory and the radical revision of this country's narrative. Subsequently, the American populace is robbed of any meaningful social or historical context for the continuation of the state, and this is important, the state-sanctioned violence. Of the state-sanctioned violence that is routinely visited upon African Americans with relative impunity. White legislative, environmental, psychological, and judicial violence enables white Americans intentional forgetting and selective amnesia. They have a selective forgettery. What is going on is that bottom line is what has happened is that, and let me give you a quick overview of this. If little Bobby starts out in his he grows up in this environment, this context. He grows up and his sister Susan and his a brother Roy. They all grew up, and they grew up in an environment where the police are friends. Their granddaddy used to be, grandfather used to be, not granddaddy, we say granddad. Grandfather used to be a police chief, and their neighbor, coaches, who's a police, he helps with the Little League baseball team. And so he's driving down the street in his bicycle's on flat. Police picks him up, said, "Hey, what's going on, little Bobby?" And he said, "Hey, Officer Jack." And Officer Jack said, "Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to put your bicycle on my car, and in my police car, and I'm going to take you home because your dad coaches my child's Little League team." That's across the other side of town. Okay, I'm not talking about Bubba, I'm not talking about Ahmad, I'm not talking about Pookie. I'm talking about across the town. And so what happens is that they grew up with that idea that police are to protect and serve. And then at the same time they grew up seeing and witnessing the criminalization on a daily basis, 24/7, of African Americans. 48 hours, another 48 hours, a third 48 hours. CSI Miami, CSI Stop 6, CSI South Dallas, Criminal Minds, Law and Order. They see all of this in this criminalization of Africans. And there's criminalization. So then now he's on a jury. Little Bobby is on a jury. And there's a white police officer who has shot. It's on video. He shot this guy down. He shot him down. He shot Pookie. And it's on video. And guess what happened? They show it to the jury. But the jury is predominantly looks like Bobby. And they grew up with this idea of protect and serve. We have to understand that that when he sees the video, he's going to say, first of all, something else must have happened. And the video does not. What happened before the video came on? They're going to say he's going to make excuses because he cannot psychologically wrap his mind around the fact that this officer has in cold blood shot this man. This man who's a criminal because he's black, because he's African. This man must be a criminal. Something must have happened. And then we get outraged when they come back with not guilty. When they come back, why should we do that? Because we should be outraged because we ought to understand that this is what is going on a daily basis. On a daily basis. And so they get an all-white jury. How can you expect? I expect an all-white jury. When all their lives, all they've seen is Officer Goodluck, and he's been a good guy to them. They don't see him beating the hell out of black folk on the other side of town. They don't see that. That's not their experience, right? Okay. Now, I want to contextualize that. So when we do that, when we look at what's going on in America, when we protest and demonstrations, so then what we do is this, is that because of what's going on, because say reparations, we're talking about reparations. Protests and demonstrations are a form of what is called asymmetric opposition, in which the protesters can't succeed by using, they cannot succeed by using force to overwhelm the state or overwhelm corporations, but they must create and exploit specific weaknesses of the state and corporation. Everything has a weakness. So then they cannot outgun people who are in love with violence, who grew up with violence, who at 3 years old knew how to shoot deer and knew how to go hunt animals. You can't expect with people who are in love with guns and so forth. So therefore, the protesters can't succeed by using force. We can't match force by force to overwhelm the state of corporation. But we have to conceptualize and exploit specific weaknesses of the corporation. Asymmetry is a strategy of the oppressed against a well-armed oppressor. It's a strategy of the oppressed against a well-armed oppressor. One side has no chance to match its opponent in a militaristic blow-for-blow fashion, and instead uses an approach for which the stronger opponent has developed ineffective defenses. So this is more of a conceptual framework that anything tied to than anything tied to a particular weapon. In other words, the protest demonstration becomes a weapon. Protest movements may be utilized as a negotiation contact to extract concessions from a state or corporation. For instance, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, protest movements usually start with fewer resources. And for this organization, an established entity against which they are protesting, they're fighting an asymmetric battle against a state that has far more resources to use against protesters. Bottom line is this: what happened is this: is that here we are, and say the corporation is what Gulf Oil, and so Gulf Oil is responsible, or whatever entity is responsible for the oppression of Africans in this country. And so there's a tactic, there's a rationale, we're going to have it here, that's employed, and then there's negotiation going on, and then they say, we're not going to do anything. You must be out of your mind. We're not going to give any reparations. We haven't done anything. Well, there's another weapon, that they are not prepared. Trust me. What we did is this: is that y'all, how many of y'all heard about race tracking? Race tracking. It's called race tracking. It's race tracking. Race tracking. If you have in your town a magnet school, Doc, you know about this. If you have in your town a magnet school, that means that where even what we had before was what we call a school within a school. So we had magnet school.
Race tracking.
They gave the money. Most of the money went to the magnet students. Now those schools were housed. They were housed in predominantly African Latino schools. And what they did it to skew the outcome. Because once you look at the scores, it looked like the schools, okay, for instance, Dunbar, looked like Dunbar was doing it. But once you disaggregate the test scores, the magnet students versus the regular students, then you find that Dunbar is really a low-performing school. So what we did is that's one track for accelerated learning students. There's another track for regular students. It's called race tracking.
Yes, it is.
So we recognize that that race tracking. So what we had to do is we had to dismantle in Fort Worth the magnet school. Of course, remember now they have proponents and they have advocates. And how do you do that? How do you do that? You can't match them weapon for weapon, but there's a weapon that they have not prepared for. So what we did is we went to the heart. We went to their most famous elementary school. Elementary school. We did. We went to the most famous elementary school in Fort Worth. It's called Tanglewood. We went to that most famous elementary school. When we got to the one that they in Mira Vista, where the creme de la creme of white folk live. And we got there, and what we did was that we protested. We know the crowd. We had legal attorney and so forth, and we had legal representation. As a matter of fact, the late James Belt was one of our attorneys. And what we did is that we walked across the street, slowed down traffic. They were on their way. These were business owners. These were presidents of banks. These were those people who had the money people. These were relatives of the Basses and the Roaches and all of those folk who have money. And so what we did is that we walked in the crosswalk. We knew that the crosswalk, they could not violate it. So then we had police everywhere. And the bottom line, when all was said and done, we ended racetracking in Fort Worth. But it took us 6 years. It took us 6 years. 6 years of protesting and demonstration. 6 years of folk. We had 2 brothers who were hit by cars. Yes, this is real. Yeah, 2 brothers who were hit by cars and all of that. But and we'll talk about that in a second. But the bottom line is, in the time that I'm allotted, the bottom line is this: is that when we went to Forest Hill, when we went to Forest Hill, Texas, and there was a lot going on there. What we did is that we ended up with the memorandum of agreement and understanding in Forest Hill. Everywhere we've gone, we've employed protests and demonstrations. And when you look in the context of what NCOBRA is about, when you look about reparations, this is a tool that can be used. What's the process? And the process is you got to identify the corporation and devise the rationale. Then you have to conceptualize the strategy. The strategy we use is called POLE, P-O-L-E, plan, organize, lead, evaluate. Then delineate the end game. What do we want to accomplish? Is there a timeline? How do we barometer or measure effectiveness? Then we organize the protest with this caveat. Organizing protest becomes increasingly challenging as the movement becomes more successful. Most authorities will tolerate a certain amount of activism because it seems to be a way of release of letting off steam. They appease the protesters by letting them think that they're making a difference, as long as the protesters don't propose a threat. But when the protest starts impacting the corporation or the city, what have you, or the state, when it starts impacting them economically, then authorities will act more aggressively. For instance, in this instance, here recently, they came over to my house. We had video of all of this, and they slashed my tires and all of the whole 9 yards, everything. Wow. But it doesn't matter. If you stay focused and you utilize this, when they start doing that, you know there's a stage. There's a stage like social psychologists talk about the different stages. There's a stage. Then not only do you do that organized protest, then you actualize it and evaluate it. That's just the skeleton. You put the meat on it, but that'll give you some idea.
One comment.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. You make me think of something that we have to include in the planning to mobilize. We had a racial tracking movement in Selma. I think I've done a video on it. You might can get it on YouTube. It took us a whole year Well, let me tell you what happened. That's what we have to be.
Well, we are going to have a Q&A though, that's for sure.
Let him make a statement.
Yes. You want to do this for the show?
In terms of mobilization, we have to have a plan for demonization and attack. Because what happens is, even when we mobilize people, they're always a step ahead because we don't think through the whole plan. In Selma, we had an awesome tracking movement, but the sisters can tell you, that tracking movement took place in 1991. They convinced the black community that I was the cause of all the white children leaving school. Someone called me yesterday and said the white radio station had a black man on the air accusing me and my husband of all these terrible things. Demonization.
That's right.
But as I said earlier, there are 3 ways they deal with agents of change. Demonization,
Right.
Incarceration, or assassination.
That's right. That's right.
So I know I have not been that effective because they have demonized me. When you're real effective, they're going to either jail you, they tried to jail me, they have jailed me, but not for the long term. So I wanted to say, when we speak of this mobilization piece, we're going to have to also educate our people about these 3 ways. You see what they did to Morgan's Gulf. This goes back in history.
Yeah, that's right.
The only person they didn't mess with a lot, and we got to study that, is Frederick Douglass. But you know what? And I love Frederick Douglass. I love what he did, but I think they co-opted him without him knowing it. So they kept appointing him to different things. You know, they made him the recorder of deeds. They gave him positions to get him on track. He's a good person. So I just want us, when we think about this piece of mobilization, we got to feel the piece. You also, somebody said something earlier about outrage. We only get outraged when one of us is killed by the white man, not when we kill each other. But we have to use those opportunities to educate.
Right.
Usually what we do is just focus on the police. This officer killed, this officer did that. If we're going to, our good mobilization strategy, we have to get involved with that demonstration, that protest with our plan, our 5-year, 10-year, 50-year plan in our mind. So at that church meeting, we just can't talk about those cops. We got to talk about these lynchings. That this is just a new form of lynching. I was at a conference in Tuskegee just 2 weeks ago. They have redefined lynchings to include these police killings. It's a continuation. So when we talk about how this cop killed this man, we got to educate our people on the history and their right to reparations. And I think if we do that, then we'll use that as another tool to mobilize. We're going to have to use every opportunity we can. And I said earlier, just don't say I'm not going to the NAACP conference because those Negroes are not about nothing, or Jesse Jackson ain't done nothing in 50 years. That is the strategy of the oppressor to keep us disunited. We got to go to every meeting. If it comes in our community, we got to go there. This sister does it. I do it. Got to sit at the table with them, bring the issue of reparations. And you know what? For those who don't like to use the word reparations, I say restitution. That's a legal concept and everybody. I just wanted to make those points. I've enjoyed both of you. It's a lot to be learned. But if you deal with how are we going to organize it, we don't have a minister in my town like you. I wish we had one minister that would go to the street with me. We don't have one. So if you're lucky enough to have a minister like this in your town, and they have an understanding of what reparation is, believe me, they can do a lot towards mobilizing our people for this long journey of reparation.